The night the doors slammed. It was past midnight when the sound of steel doors echoed down the cell block, a noise that never failed to crawl beneath your skin. That sharp clang, followed by the click of the lock, was the sound of reality setting in. For the new guy, Ryan Hale, it was the sound of a life sentence beginning. Ryan had been inside for less than an hour when he realized something was wrong. The silence wasn't normal. San Quentin was never quiet. Even in the dead of night, you could hear shouts from the upper tiers, whispers through the vents, and the occasional thud of fists against metal. But that night, nothing. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint echo of water dripping somewhere far away. His cellmate, a wiry man with gray hair and eyes like cut glass, broke the silence first. "You hear it too, don't you?" he asked. Ryan nodded. "That's not silence," the old man said. "That's fear." The man's name was Doyle Mercer, 20 years and on a murder charge he never denied. He'd survived riots, gang wars, and lockdowns that lasted weeks. He knew the unwritten rules of San Quentin better than most, who to look at, who to avoid, and which guards you could trust. But he also knew something darker, something he never talked about out loud. That night, as the two men sat in their cell, the intercom crackled to life. A voice came through, distorted and low. "Unit D is on full lockdown. No movement until further notice." No one explained why. At 3:12 a.m., the first scream cut through the silence. It wasn't close, but it was enough to make every inmate freeze. Doyle stood, his eyes fixed on the corridor beyond the bars. "East Wing," he muttered. "They're doing it again." "Doing what?" Ryan asked. "Transfers," Doyle whispered. "Only this late at night, they don't bring people in. They take them out." Ryan didn't sleep. No one did. By morning, word spread through the prison like wildfire. An inmate named Luis Ortega had vanished from solitary confinement. His bed was stripped, his inmate number erased from the logs. To the system, it was as if he never existed. But Luis wasn't just any inmate. He was a former correctional officer, caught smuggling contraband into the prison. And the last person to speak to him before he disappeared was Doyle Mercer. When the guards came for Doyle later that day, he didn't resist. He looked at Ryan and said, "Remember what I told you. The silence means fear. And fear means they're hiding something." That night, the tier lights flickered. For the first time since he arrived, Ryan heard the whispering, low, steady, coming from the vents. Voices. Names. Instructions. He pressed his ear against the cold metal. One word stood out: Block C. 2 hours later, there was a disturbance in Block C. A cell fire, according to the guards. But when smoke filled the corridor, Ryan saw something strange through the haze. 2 men in black uniforms, faces hidden, carrying what looked like a body bag out through the side gate. The next morning, Doyle didn't return. His bunk was empty, his name scratched off the assignment board. Just like Luis. Ryan tried asking questions, but the guards brushed him off. "Transfers happen all the time," one said, though the look in his eyes told a different story. Other inmates whispered that Doyle had crossed the wrong people. Some said he was put in protective custody. Others swore he was dead. But Ryan found something no one could explain: a folded piece of paper wedged behind the cell toilet. It was stained, torn, but one line was still clear. "If they take me, look under the floor in the old chapel." That night, Ryan made a decision that would define his time in San Quentin. He would find whatever Doyle had hidden, even if it meant risking his own life. He waited until lights out, then slipped from his bunk and crept toward the chapel corridor, moving in the shadows where the cameras couldn't see. The chapel had been closed for years, a relic of a time when faith still meant something behind bars. The door was chained, but Ryan found a loose panel near the base. He pried it open just enough to crawl through. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Broken pews lay scattered, and the faint smell of bleach lingered. He found the trapdoor near the altar, exactly where Doyle's note said it would be. His hands trembled as he pulled it open. Below was a dark, narrow space, maybe an old storage pit or forgotten maintenance tunnel. He reached in, feeling around blindly. His fingers brushed something cold and metallic. When he pulled it out, The beam of his flashlight revealed an old prison key and a blood-stained folder marked with the letters, DOC internal. He opened it to the first page and froze. Inside were photos, surveillance stills of guards, inmates, and something worse, a list of names under the heading Unauthorized Transfers. Doyle Mercer's name was second from the top. And right below it, Ryan Hale. The secret below, San Quentin. They say curiosity can kill a man faster than a shank. In San Quentin, that was gospel truth. But for Ryan Hale, it was already too late to turn back. He sat in the dim light of his cell, the blood-stained folder hidden beneath his mattress. His pulse hadn't slowed since the moment he saw his own name printed on that list. Unauthorized transfers. Transfers. That's what they called it when someone disappeared without explanation. No paperwork, no trace, no goodbye. Doyle had warned him. They take them out, he'd said. Now, Ryan understood what that meant. At count time, the guards marched down the corridor, keys jangling, boots thudding against the concrete. Ryan kept his face blank, pretending to be another worn-out inmate killing time. But inside, every nerve in his body screamed. After count, he slipped into the laundry block. That's where he met Eddie Stitch Morales, a tattooed lifer who knew the prison's underground routes better than the guards did. Eddie was Doyle's old cellmate before the transfer. If anyone knew the truth, it was him. Doyle's gone, Ryan said quietly. And they had me on the same list. Eddie's eyes narrowed. He reached for his mop, glancing toward the security camera in the corner. Don't say that name out loud, he whispered. You trying to end up in a hole? I found his note, Ryan said. In the chapel. Eddie froze. The mop handle slipped from his hand and clattered against the floor. You went down there? He asked. You have no idea what that place really is. Ryan stepped closer. Then tell me. Eddie looked over both shoulders before speaking. That chapel was never for praying, he said. They built it over the old tunnels, ones that run under the East Yard. The DOC used them decades ago to move high-risk inmates during lockdowns. But after the riots in '89, they sealed them off. Then why would Doyle hide something down there? Eddie hesitated. Because they still use them. Quiet transfers. No paperwork. No questions. You disappear into those tunnels. You're gone for good. Ryan's stomach tightened. Who's they? Eddie sighed. Not the guards you see every day. I'm talking about the special management unit off the books, private security working inside the state system. They deal with snitches, corrupt staff, and anyone who knows too much. Ryan reached into his jumpsuit and pulled out the corner of the folder. Eddie's face went pale. You brought that here? You trying to get both of us killed? I need proof, Ryan said. Names, faces, anything. Eddie swallowed hard. Then you need to see the east access hatch. It's under the boiler room. Doyle called it the pit. But once you're down there, there's no coming back up the same way. That night, Ryan made up his mind. He couldn't sleep, not with his name on that list. He had to see for himself. Just before lights out, he joined the work crew headed to the boiler room for maintenance duty. The heat was unbearable, the air thick with the smell of metal and sweat. As the others worked, Ryan slipped behind a stack of pipes and found it, a metal grate, bolted to the floor. The bolts had been tampered with. Someone had used it recently. He loosened them one by one, heart pounding. When the grate came free, a wave of cold air rushed upward. Beneath it was darkness, the kind that swallowed sound. He climbed down the ladder. The walls were slick with moisture, the light from a small flashlight barely reaching the end of the tunnel. The silence was heavy, pressing against his ears like water. Then he heard it, a faint humming. Electrical. Consistent. He followed the sound until he reached a metal door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Ryan hesitated. Then, taking a deep breath, he turned the handle. The door opened to a room that didn't belong in a prison. It looked like a small operations center. Rows of monitors, cables snaking across the floor, and a table stacked with files identical to the one he'd found. The screens showed live feeds from every corner of San Quentin, the yard, the mess hall, solitary. And on one screen was his own cell. Ryan's throat went dry. Someone had been watching him the whole time. He rifled through the folders on the table. Inside were more names, photos, dates: Luis Ortega, Doyle Mercer, Thomas Vale, Jeremy Brooks, each listed as transferred. Then he saw another section labeled pending. The first name, Ryan Hale. The date next to it, March 18th, tomorrow. His flashlight flickered. Somewhere behind him, metal scraped against concrete. Ryan spun around, but no one was there. Just the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps echoing through the tunnel. He killed the light and pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath. The footsteps stopped. A faint red glow appeared near the ceiling, a motion sensor. He wasn't supposed to be here. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him, calm and low. "You shouldn't have come down here, Hale." Ryan froze. He recognized that voice. It was Officer Reddick, one of the guards who'd escorted Doyle out of the cell block. "What is this place?" Ryan demanded. Reddick stepped into the light, his face unreadable. "You weren't supposed to see this. You could have done your time, kept quiet, but you had to start digging." "Where's Doyle?" Ryan asked. Reddick's lips curled into a cold smirk. "Some doors don't open twice." Then, before Ryan could react, Reddick reached for his radio. Ryan bolted. He sprinted down the tunnel, lungs burning, the echo of Reddick's boots behind him. The lights above flickered. Alarms started to blare. They knew he was down here. He turned a corner and found a maintenance ladder leading up. He climbed fast, scraping his hands bloody on the rungs. He could hear shouting below, radios crackling. He pushed open a hatch and pulled himself up into a storage room, just below the infirmary. He collapsed, gasping for air. In his hand, he still clutched one page he'd torn from the file. The heading read, Project Resolution. And at the bottom, stamped in red ink, authorized by Warden S. Kellerman. The warden himself was behind the disappearances. Ryan knew then that Doyle had been right. San Quentin wasn't just a prison. It was a machine. And the people it took were the parts no one was supposed to see again. The warden's secret. Ryan didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the cell block made him flinch. Every footstep, every whisper, every distant clang of metal on metal. He hid the torn document under the loose tile near his bunk and stared at the concrete ceiling until morning count. He was running out of time. March 18th, today, was the date marked next to his name. He knew what that meant now. If he didn't act, he'd vanish before sundown. When the guards came for the work detail, Ryan moved like a ghost, saying nothing, eyes hollow. Inside, his mind raced. Reddick had seen him. That meant the warden knew too. Every camera, every guard, all eyes on him. He needed help, but trust was the rarest currency in San Quentin. At lunch, he slipped next to Eddie Morales in the chow line. "They know," Ryan whispered. "Reddick caught me in the tunnels." Eddie's face tightened. "Then you're already done. They'll call you for medical evaluation or transfer. Don't go. You hear me? Don't go anywhere near the East Gate." Ryan clenched his jaw. "I have something. Proof." Eddie stopped eating. "You still got that page?" Ryan nodded. Eddie wiped his mouth and leaned close. "Then your only chance is to get it to the outside. Mailroom won't help you. They screen everything. But the infirmary has an old fax line the guards forget exists. Doyle used it once. That's how the first story got out." "Story?" Eddie's eyes darted around. "A reporter. She wrote about prison corruption years ago. Doyle fed her info before they caught on. She's still out there. If you can get her that page, someone might start asking questions again." Ryan's pulse quickened. "What's her name?" "Grace Larkin," Eddie said. "Bay Chronicle. Tell her Doyle's last words were true." That night, Ryan volunteered for janitorial duty in the infirmary. His hands shook as he pushed the mop bucket down the corridor, passing cells filled with the moans of sick men. When he reached the end of the hall, he saw it, an old fax machine on a dusty metal desk beside a cracked window. He unfolded the page, flattened it, and typed the number Eddie had scrawled on a scrap of cardboard. The machine hummed, then began feeding the paper through. Halfway through the transmission, the machine stopped. Red light, connection error. Then came the sound of a door opening behind him. "Working late, Hale?" "Reddick." Ryan froze, heart hammering. "Warden's orders," he said quickly, turning the mop handle in his hands like a weapon. Reddick stepped forward slowly. "You should have stayed quiet." Ryan's eyes darted toward the fax, the paper halfway ejected. If he could just hit send again. Reddick lunged. Ryan swung the mop, catching him across the face. The radio fell from Reddick's belt. Ryan stomped on it, shattering it, then dove for the fax machine. He hit send and prayed. The machine whirred again. The sound was deafening in the silence. Then, confirmation tone. The page was gone. Transmitted. Reddick tackled him to the ground, fist slamming into his jaw. "You think anyone's gonna believe a convict?" he hissed. Ryan spat blood. "Maybe not. But now they'll ask questions." Reddick's fist froze midair. Then the lights flickered. Alarms started blaring. Ryan blinked in confusion. Reddick looked up, then grabbed his radio, the backup one clipped to his vest. "We've got a breach." "Repeat, breach." But the voice on the other end cut him off. "All units. Lockdown. East Tunnel compromised." The East Tunnel. Someone else had gone down there. Reddick swore under his breath and ran out, leaving Ryan bruised on the floor. Ryan crawled to the wall and peeked through the small window. Down in the yard, floodlights scanned wildly. Guards shouted orders. Something big was happening. Then he saw Eddie being dragged across the yard by 2 officers. His face was bloodied, but he was smiling. Ryan pressed his hand to the glass. Eddie mouthed 2 words before being shoved into a transport van. "It's done." Moments later, the power cut. The prison fell into darkness. When the lights came back on, hours later, everything changed. By morning, rumors spread like wildfire. The Chronicle had published a front-page story titled, "Whistleblower Exposes Secret Prison Transfers at San Quentin." The article included scans of the very page Ryan had faxed, Project Resolution, signed by Warden Kellerman. It alleged that inmates were being illegally relocated and used for off-the-books labor contracts with private corporations. The governor's office launched an immediate investigation. When the feds arrived, Warden Kellerman was nowhere to be found. His office had been cleared out, files missing, hard drives wiped. Reddick, too, had vanished before dawn. Ryan and Eddie were placed under federal protection. But Eddie never made it to court. His transport van went off the road outside San Rafael. Official cause: brake failure. Ryan didn't buy it. Months later, he stood before the parole board. A clean record since the scandal. The truth had saved him, but it haunted him. As he was released through the same gate where Doyle had disappeared, the cold bay air hit his face like a ghost of the past. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted his name, asking what he'd do now that he was free. He stopped, looking straight into the nearest lens. "San Quentin doesn't forget," he said. "It just buries what it can't control." That night, he checked into a cheap motel off the freeway. The phone rang before he even set his bag down. He answered, expecting Eddie, then remembered. But the voice on the line wasn't the warden's. It was a woman's. "Mr. Hale," she said softly. "This is Grace Larkin. I got your fax. There's more to Project Resolution than we printed. You need to see what else they found under the old chapel." Ryan froze. The line went dead. Outside, in the parking lot, a black car idled beneath a flickering streetlight. Its headlights flashed twice, then drove off into the night. Ryan turned toward the window, his reflection trembling in the glass. The scars of San Quentin would never leave him. And somewhere beneath that prison the machine was still running. "If you think this story was intense," the narrator would whisper, "you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, because the next secret buried under San Quentin is darker than anyone imagined."